Okay, hello. Welcome everyone to the channel. My name is Afif and this is a series on building a Tailwind page builder with Vue, Vite, and obviously Tailwind. And as I've said before, this is a series, so if you've stumbled upon this episode and are wondering what the hell I'm talking about, you probably need to watch from the start of the series. And I've linked the playlist for this series in the description below, so you can go ahead and check that and you can start from episode 1. So, continuing on from the last episode, we were implementing a few component attributes based on Tailwind, and we were following this component here based on this. And I've done just that, and this is the final result. So, as you can see, we have the image here. Of course, I'm just using a placeholder. We have the shop name, and we have the place, the icons, everything is there. So we have we can do border radius, we can do borders now, we can do padding and margins. All of those are added. I didn't add some of them I added during the live stream of the previous episode, but some of them I actually added them offline, so you couldn't see them, but they follow the same pattern as the previous episode. So yeah, but right now, if you want to create something like this, it has to be on the code, and we don't want to do that. We want to do a page builder, right? So what we're going to do today is to create an editor for each of those components. So that means we can go and select a component, and we'll get all the attributes currently, and we can edit them to be different. So we can change the font color, for example, or we can change the font size, or we can change the image source attribute, something like that. So that's what we're gonna do today. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. Right, so this is the current code that I have. So what changed from between my last live stream and the current live stream is that I now have an icon component for this little one here in here. So this is based on Iconify, which is great. It gives me access to a lot of icon libraries that are really, really good. And then I have a few more things like I have I can't remember what I added. Like we can do border width, border. We can do a lot more attributes now. So yeah, so that's that. And now we're gonna create the editor. So the editor will be here, appearing like a sidebar. So we're gonna add that right at the root of the whole app. So this is the page builder. The page builder, in hindsight, we shouldn't probably call this page builder. We should probably call this something like the components, like something like that. Page elements, for example. But we can do the renaming later. I want to get to the point of this video as fast as I can. I don't want to be derailed by refactoring efforts. So yeah, so this is the page builder component, and we're gonna have something else here that says components editor. So something like that. And so let's go ahead and create this component now. So let me just take whatever we have right now, just copy that. So we're just gonna say components editor. I'm gonna bring this here so that I can benefit from this split. Nope, not that kind of split. Okay, so yep. So we have this. Now we can do something like, so let's just say editor right now, okay? So maybe we can use a site, since this is gonna be a sidebar, and we can give it a style as well. So we definitely want to register this, so we can do components editor from, sorry, components, and then components editor. Okay, so that's that, and we can delete all this. We don't need them. We also don't need this. Yep. Okay, so empty, everything empty, just left define component. Okay, so right now we should see this editor here, and should appear somewhere. Okay, so fail to resolve component. Yeah, sorry, we cannot just import it, we also need to register it. Components, editor. Okay, I'm gonna close Docker so that it's faster. My machine is lagging. I need every resources possible for this streaming. Okay, so now we have components editor. So if we go back here, there's still an error. It's saying that cannot this structure property default of undefined as it is undefined. Right, I think I have some problems here. Fail to resolve. Does the file exist? Yes, there is. Oh, okay. I think I need to do .view here. Okay, so now it should work. Right, so we can see the editor here. We definitely want to style that better so that we can make it a real sidebar. So we're gonna do a flex on this one, and so this one we're gonna do a I don't think we need that flex, but it's okay. Just so for this page builder, we definitely want to make it only 2/3 of the screen, and then for this components editor, we want to make it 1/3 of the screen. So we're gonna use the with helper classes from Tailwind to do that. So now we have yeah, so we have 2/3 of the page for these components, and then 1/3 of the page for the editor. So yeah, so next the thing that we need to do is we need to track which element is being clicked and being selected and trying to be edited, right? So we can introduce a new ref for that. So let's see here, I'm gonna probably rename this as components. I don't think state is reflective of what it is actually. It is just a list of components actually. So yeah, I changed that, and I think in page builder it will change that for me, right? Okay, and then in app.view it's also changed to components now, so that's great. Next we want to do is we wanted to introduce a ref that can track the selected component. So I'm not gonna do it here, I'm gonna do it in a separate file. So let's create a new TypeScript file. If it ever appears, if not, I'll just use this touch src store. We're gonna call it editor.ds. So this is gonna be just having all the related store attributes for the editor itself, not just the not for the components. So it appears now. So what we're gonna do is just gonna export one stuff that says selected component ID. And yeah, so at first selected component ID is null, so we definitely gonna have to import this. Okay, so now what we can do is we can say that so for inside the page builder component, again, this should be something else. This should be something like page element or something. It definitely shouldn't be page builder, but I'm gonna do that next in offline, not on the screen. But yeah, I mean, this should have been better named, this component. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to make sure that each component can listen to a click event, and then every time we click that, it will update this ref here. So this is because this is exported from this file, this is kind of like a singleton. So throughout the whole app, this is only just gonna have this ref here as a singleton, and it's not for all files that import this, it's not gonna have multiple multiple instances of it. It's just gonna be one instance. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is we're gonna import this particular component. So we import selected component ID, and from store editor.ts. Okay, so now we have that. We're gonna have to export that in the setup. So selected component ID, and now that we have exported that, it's exposed to the template, and we can just assign a click event here. We want this to stop the propagation, and this is just gonna set the selected component ID to equals ID. Okay, simple as that. So to make sure that this works, let's go to the components editor and just import this, and let's just display it here. So what we are expecting is that every time we click, it's going to change this ref, selected component ID ref here. So let's do that. Oops. Selected component ID. Okay, so let's go back here. I'm already seeing an error, does not provide an export name state. Okay, so I think some of the, when I rename, I think some of them doesn't get changed. So I think, maybe I just need to refresh. Okay, so it doesn't seem like there's any problem. So I'm just gonna click here. Nope, nope, nope. Okay, let's look at this again. Click stop, selected component ID equals to ID. We have the ID, we have the selected component ID, so this should change it. I'm not sure what's going on. Selected component ID, we select it here. Let me think. Right, so firstly we need to make sure that, okay, let's just put this as 1, 2, 3. So now we should see that here, and whenever we clicked, it should have changed, but it doesn't. Okay, so that means there's something wrong here. So click stop, selected component ID equals to ID. Let's see if this works. So I don't think the click is binding right now, so I'm not sure what am I doing wrong here. So selected component ID is here. It's returned. So let's try this. So we're just gonna say this should do a console.log ID. Okay, cannot read property log. Okay, right, so this is correct. So let's just say log something, then we're just gonna go here and say log to be this function, console log I'm just debugging it right now. So, okay. I'm seeing some errors here. It's not defined on the instance. Oh, sorry. This is wrong. Oh, right. So this is not the right one. This is the children. So what we want here is this to be here so that it can be exported as part of the setup function. So I'm gonna put this back. So selected component ID equals to ID. So this should work now. Okay, so I'm gonna reset back this to null. And you can see that we are getting the ID here. So these are the ID that we set for each of those components. And now we can do the editor itself. So I'm gonna just probably show you one editor, and then we can cut this short. And I'm gonna go off stream again and do all of the component editor for all of the other components. Because if I'm gonna do all of them, it's just gonna take some time. It's not gonna be enough time. I don't plan this to be like a 2-hour long kind of stream. So yeah, but if you're watching this stream, you should get the idea of how I'm gonna do it. So yeah, I'm just gonna apply the same concept to all the other components. So right, so I think let's try with this text component. Okay, so text component, you can edit 4 stuff, which is text, font color, font weight, and font size. So that's what we're gonna do. Inside this components editor, we're gonna take the same approach that we took for page builder. We're gonna have this dynamic component here. So we're just gonna do component is editor component. Sorry, component editor. Selected component editor. Okay, so that's that. And we're gonna have to declare this, of course. So selected component editor is, we're gonna have a components mapping the same way we have that for page builder. So in here we declare each of the, so this is each of the type of the component. So this corresponds to what we have in this components, the components structure, right? So this card is of type block, and then this shop title is of type text, and that corresponds to this, and this loads this text component. So we're gonna do the same way. So we're gonna have a components mapping, probably gonna call it editor component editors mapping, and we're gonna have just the text for this one, for this stream. But of course, I'm gonna add more off stream. So we're gonna call that text component editor, and we're gonna have to create this now. So for the editors, I'm gonna create that in a separate folder. So this will be src/components/editors, and this will be text component editor. Okay. So now that we have this, we're gonna create a few components. So I'm just gonna get a form. So we want to be able to edit the text, font color, font weight, and font size. So we're gonna use text area for the text, and then we're gonna use text input text for these three. But of course, it's not probably the best one. We can probably get away with like some kind of select or something. So this font color is based on Tailwind, right? So it should be something a finite set of choices. So but we're not gonna do that in this stream. We're just gonna make it simple. Okay, so we're gonna introduce a text area, and this would be of type, sorry, this is going to be reading from the component dot text, sorry, dot props dot text. So component is this whole block. We're going to create that later, but then what we want is this value here, for example. So it's going to be components dot props dot text. Okay, and this is going to be a computed property that we're going to create later. Okay, so let's create that one first. Just make it simple. So we don't need all of this. We don't need all of this because we're reading from the store. What we want here is the component. And this should be a computed property. So component equals computed. Add import statement. I hope that adds that correctly for me. Yep. So I'm gonna remove the rest of the things that we don't use anymore. So what this computed does is that it's going to read from the selected component ID. So it's going to return components. So this components comes from the store, which is this one. Okay. I also realized that if I don't put the file name and the extension like this, the hot reload doesn't work. So I'm just gonna put that, even though it gives me a warning here, but I'm just gonna do that. Okay, so it's what we want to do is, so this is a ref, so we have to do dot value. And then what we want is we want to select based on, so right now selected component ID is a string. So this is what we have. It's a string of that ID. So that means we can do something like this. So yeah, so I'm gonna import this. So what we did here is that we get this components list here. Okay, dot value. Value is to unref it. And so this is also another ref. So we also have to unref it. So you're gonna call components.value and selected component ID, the current component ID dot value. And this is gonna get this particular. So for example, if cart is being selected right now, this is going to be, this object is going to be what's inside component. And we're gonna use that in this V model. Okay, so now that we have this, we can go here and we can click the text component. It should have something here. Editor, product title. Right, I think I haven't. Right, I haven't wired up stuff on this side. So the selected component editor is the selected component editor. So we have this text component editor here. So we have the selected component ID. So the selected component editor would be a computed property that reads from the selected, sorry, components dot value, and then we're gonna do selected component ID dot value, and then we're gonna get the type. Okay, so we're gonna import these two stuff, for of course. So, and we're also gonna have to we have to import this as well. Okay, and then right, so actually we're not done here. So we add the braces. So you can see that this will get the selected component type. We want to do that further. What we're going to do is we are going to return components editor mapping, and then we're going to get that type. Okay, so what this does is that once every time selected component ID change, this is going to rerun and it's going to select the component type based on the selected component ID. And if we have something assigned in this, so for example, if we click something that of type text, then this will resolve to text component editor and it will be loaded here. Okay, so let's try that. And if I click this, you can see that this is appearing here. This is a text area, but we cannot see it because there's no borders. So we're probably going to create, just to make it easier to see, we're just going to add that border there. Okay, so class border, just a simple one. Okay, so now we can see that there is a text area here. So if we change something here, you can see that this is updated as well. So yeah, we have our editor here. And we're gonna create 3 more text fields. That's going to be able to change the font color and the font size, and also what else? I think font weight. So if we go to a text, font size, font color, yep, and font weight. Okay, so let's do that. I'm just gonna do input type text, and I'm just gonna do a v model, and this is going to be component.props dot a font color. Copy that 3 times, and this is gonna be font size, and then this is gonna be font weight. Okay, so now we can see those 3 things. This is empty because it is really empty. This is text large because this is the large one. So if we click this, this is text XS, extra small, and it's blue. So we can see that. So if we update this, it should update, but it doesn't. Right, so there might be a problem here. So let's see how text component is wired. So we know that this is going to update the component object because we know that happened here. So you can see that this happens, but somehow we probably didn't wire it correctly for these attributes. So let's go and check. So we go to text component.view, and we have the Tailwind classes here. Right. Okay. So, okay, I see. So what I'm using here is the setup function. So if I destructure props from a setup function like this, it is going to lose its reactivity. So we have to put that back as a ref. And then, so a setup function, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that should be right. So a setup function is run only once when you import the component, if I'm not mistaken. So there's another feature in Vue 3.2 that allows you to do script setup. That's gonna simplify a lot of this. That one is run every component create. So there's a bit of difference. So, but what I'm saying is because this is run only once, this is actually not reactive at all. So if we want to make it reactive, we have to make these Tailwind classes. First, we have to make these props reactive, and then we have to make these Tailwind classes be reactive as well. It's probably a computed property. And this computed property will depend to these reactive props. And every time these reactive props change, this computed property should be recomputed and give us a newly computed Tailwind classes. So this is why this is having a problem. So right now it works during the first load because it's we're not changing anything on during the runtime. So I'm gonna make that change now. So I'm gonna change this to computed. So I think we can return the whole thing here. So I'm gonna change this to CSS classes, let's say. Then we're just gonna do CSS classes, and we're gonna export that computed property. And here we're not gonna return an object anymore. We're just gonna return Tailwind classes dot join. Okay, so we need this now. So we just say Tailwind classes. Right. I think this should work now. Oh, right. We have to do dot value here because, right. So there's a few things that we need to do. So this, for example, this can go back to props, and then we're gonna do this destructuring here, and we're gonna call two refs and pass props into it. So what this does is gonna assign a new ref to each of these props, so that they are going to be a reactive property. So I think this should work. So we have the computer property that is going to change every time any of these props change. And yeah, so it also explains why text works, because text doesn't go through the CSS class processing. So it just used directly in here. So every time it changed directly. So we're just gonna call this. Okay, so now that we have this, I'm gonna reset all this gibberish here so that we have something more sensible to work with. Okay, right, so we're back to massive dynamic. We're gonna click here and we get all this, and let's say we change this to font bold. Okay, so I think that it doesn't work because right now we are not even seeing all the blue colors and stuff. Okay, so I think there's some problem here. Computed Tailwind classes dot join. So CSS classes. Okay, so two refs props. So we change that. Right, so this is not called classes, it's called CSS classes. I ignored the warning there. Okay, so this should work now. Okay, so now we're back to blue color, and we can change this to green, and you can see that this changed. Of course, this is not probably the best experience right now. We don't want to be typing these things ourselves. We want this to be simplified, you know, streamlined. We probably have a finite set of options like XS, 3XL, large, and stuff like that, so that we can, you know, don't have to remember the name of the classes. But right now, yeah, it works like this. So yeah, so this is how it's done. I should probably refine the UI here, but I'm gonna do that as a separate stream, in a separate stream. So yep, yeah, we have all this. Isn't it cool? So this is, I think this is the size, so I can change that to text access, and it's gonna change that immediately. Okay, and yeah, so what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna create more component editors for all of the component types, and I'm gonna do that off stream, and then the next round we can probably look at the ability to add components or remove components. Yeah, so that has been the stream. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.